I think so. Yeah, I think it'd be quite relevant.
We're live. Hello.
Oh, and we're live.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah,
Thank
just
you for
there.
joining again at our expose live at 5. As you can see, Ben's got a much more exotic background than myself in our office meeting room. Ben, can you share with everyone where you are?
Yeah, so I'm currently in Barbados. I don't know if you can see what's going on behind me. I was trying to sit in a way that looks good, but the only place that has decent Wi-Fi doesn't have very good views. So, yeah, we're just gonna have to put up with what I've got. Can you hear me okay still?
Yeah, we can hear you. Your tan looks good. A little bit rosy red.
Don't think I've ever had one of those.
Good, cool. So, welcome again,
Welcome everyone.
Just a bit of an introduction to the expose live at 5 weekly Q&A. Make sure whatever platform you're on, you can live questions to us and we will answer them while we're on the call. These calls are to give you a round robin of what we are doing in our 4 companies every week, the trials, the tribulations, the ups, the downs, and hopefully providing value for anyone out there running a business in property, construction, or in property development. So we've got a list of things to go through today. And if you don't mind, Ben, I will kick off. So Central Suites is a business I run with my brother. We bought a semi-detached house about 4 months, 4 months ago. And the idea of developing that house was to go for a loft extension, a back to brick renovation, a lot of steel work to make it open plan. And to enhance the value, we bought the property for 310,000. The gross development value is anywhere upwards to 600,000. But we also like the fact that there was a bit of scope to go into the backland and potentially develop more there, whether it's 1 or 2 units, chalet bungalow style. So we had the pre-application meeting on Tuesday with the planning officer. All was positive. The main concern around the pre-application meeting was to ensure that it was of character, but it looks very positive for us to push it to a full planning application. Ben's normally the guy that runs our design and planning in XP Property, but obviously on this occasion it's in Central Suites. Sometimes I do sound check things with Ben, but the reason that we do a pre-application, and if there's any listeners out there that's got a planning application coming up, is because we want to get a feel of what the council want to see and want to be integrated in our planning application. So it's saving time, wasting fees on redesigning, is basically a bit of a collaboration with you and the council to show indicative ideas of what you're thinking of, and then it makes your planning application a lot more comprehensive and likely to get through. I will caveat that pre-apps are great. The pricing has gone up, but it normally is cost effective for us. Ben's just sharing the backland scope there. So we bought number 44. We're not actually extending the building, but we're looking at obtaining planning for that additional unit as a backland. The deal worked itself without the rear development, but obviously that is a huge bonus and takes our profit on gross development value up to about 35 to 38% on GDV. And I was talking about why we do pre-apps, and there was a caveat. I will say that if you are looking at doing a pre-app in an area, make sure you check with local planning consultants to see how long their turnaround time is. Because if you take, for example, Reading Borough Council, they take almost a year to come back on a pre-application, so it might actually be more worthwhile going in for a full application and getting feedback on that. Ben, any feedback on pre-apps, if you're still with us signal-wise? Doesn't look like it. I don't even know if this is feeding correctly because I think Ben's hosting the call, so I'm just going to blabber on as if it is, and if it isn't, then I've been talking to myself for half an hour. So that's positive news for the pre-app, so we'll be cracking on and submitting that into full planning. In addition to that, let's jump on to the next spot. Ben, I think you're back with us now, are you? Modern day issues. Who knows what the problems are? So also an update on this week. We had a positive meeting with a co-founder of LMPG, which is a Landlord National Purchasing Group, to discuss working with XP on a potential joint venture investment basis. And then this sort of goes on to the benefit of having comprehensive businesses around your sort of core business that are in property, construction and development. So not only were we discussing about potentially joint venturing together on potential projects, but also yeah, I'm just looking at the questions now. Lost Ben, but still got Jack. Cool. Okay. If I'm still going, thanks James for confirming. I will keep cracking on. Let me know if you can still hear me live, and that would be good. So just talking about the benefit of having what we call sort of an ecosystem and osmosis to businesses. So not only were we discussing investment with this partner, but they've obviously got a service-based business, LMPG, but we're also discussing integrating our service-based business into their service-based business and also doing business with them in our development company. So what does that look like? I'll give you an example. So when Ben or I attend an event, and we're talking at the event or even chairing a panel or part of the panel or even just attending, when we're talking about our development company, it's really forgiving, and we're basically constantly a business development manager for our service-based companies around. So we've now started to get a lot of inbound leads for Ben's architectural practice, for XP surveys, which is obviously providing architectural design services to developers, but then also surveying products and measured building and topographical surveys to developers too. So that anyone out there that is currently got a business that's service-based or a development company, we'd highly advise that it's really good to have a sister company that can complement and sort of integrate with each company. Another good example that's not XP Property, later on today I'm going to dinner with another developer. That particular developer runs a really successful loft conversion business. So it's fundamentally a construction company, but they do a sort of I suppose you could say conveyor belt of loft conversions, and they specialize in that. So they've got the design team, they've got the planning team, they then have the contractors that they bring in. Now he is also in a development company, and because he's networking within those circles, it's a really good balance of two businesses going hand in hand, and you do tend to win a lot of business. So we obviously have that with XP Survey, surveying sites, Aura Architecture, doing the design, planning. We then have XP Property as a development, and then we have Central Suite as the management and lettings business. That's a full cycle of any particular project. So if anyone's got any questions about how to run service-based businesses or any ideas, please do send us a message. We've got some people tuning in here. Ben, are you back with us? All I can see is a funny face and some clicking. It might just be the Jack show today. It's frozen on a very funny face there. Cool. Well, I'm just going to crack on because it might just be me forever. And I don't even think I've got the power to stop this. So let's see how long we run on for. So moving on to, there's a couple of points in here that I really wanted Ben to go through because they are in the design and planning team. But another update I can share with you, we have exchanged and are due to complete in about 5 weeks on a mixed use scheme in West Drayton. West Drayton is West London, Hillingdon Borough. We had a bit of a series of unfortunate events with this scheme, and I'll explain why. But the positive news off the back of West Drayton for this week is we're basically buying a disused solicitor's office. The day that we exchanged, we got an advertising board up to market the space for full commercial use. That benefits us in 2 ways. We might get a tenant that wants to take the whole space, and that also backs up our argument to convert it to residential use. Ben and the team at Aura and also internally have done a really good design to come up with a 6 flats, 3 commercial scheme, which so the news as of today is that has been submitted and validated. We submitted that, I believe, about 2 weeks ago, and it was validated today. Fortunately, the council have backdated the validation. Ben, you look like you're with us now.
I think I am. Yeah, I've managed to find the strongest Wi-Fi.
Good. Cool. I was
Anyway,
just
back
talking
in the game.
about
Where you at?
planning application for West Drayton.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so yeah, I think I just heard you say that it's been validated, which is great. So, a few nuances with this. I don't know if you've mentioned about the fact that the local council brought in an Article 4 directive just before we were about to submit that stopped the sort of PD conversion of office to resi. So we've had to go in with a full planning application. We've maintained an element of retail on the ground floor to show that there's not a sort of full loss of commercial space. And like Jack says, we've gone in for six residential flats, and we've maintained one element of retail on the ground floor that would have been the old office, and then two other elements of retail which were currently retail and will stay as retail as well. So yeah, we'll see how that pans out. Stay tuned for more updates.
So to sort of highlight our biggest learning on that scheme when we were buying it, the seller was no way in hell going to accept a subject to planning deal. So we were buying this regardless of planning. But what we have started to integrate into our contract is if a building's listing status or a new direction comes in between exchange and completion, specifically for deals like these that are exchange delayed completion. So we had a 4-month delayed completion on this scheme. Then we can renegotiate, we can re-agree the contract, and we can potentially have an extension or whatever it may be. So a key one there is we implement quite a few things into our contracts. I can give you a quick cheat sheet on all of them. So we make sure all our contracts are assignable so that we can move it into a subsidiary company or an investor's company, or alternatively subsell the deal. So that's back to back the deal. We make sure that if the listing status, Article 4 direction comes in, or any change, material changes in the asset changes, we have a sort of get out clause to protect ourselves and our partners. So that was a big learning on that one. Ben, do you want to dive on about your latest house video tour?
Yes, cool. Yeah, just as I managed to get Usually up. So just as an FYI, that's the building that we're buying. It's a former chapel, then an office, and now we're going to be converting that to resi. So yeah, some big news this week. Early this week, we launched our latest Homes Under the Camera video tour, which is basically one of Aura's projects that we have videoed. We've done a walking tour through the property, showing the before and after plans, discussed all of the costs and the finishes and fittings that we've put in. It's one of my favorite kitchens that we've actually installed within our clients database. It looks a little bit like this. Head over to YouTube, subscribe to Aura Architecture, and check that out. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, good stuff. Cool. So yeah, just a little snippet there. Head over. We launched it yesterday. And yeah, so far it's doing okay. 231 views, which is good. Some other stuff going on YouTube. So Jack did a really great interview with Tyler Newman. If you know them, they've got a fantastic YouTube channel. They are property developers, property investors. It's Tyler Newman and Tyler Rose and Rosie Newman, isn't it? Rosie Cassidy.
No, Tyler.
Yes.
Tyler Newman, Rosie Cassidy. Yeah.
That's the one. So yeah, head over to their YouTube channel as well and make sure you're subscribed. They've got some really, really interesting interviews with people like Daniel Priestley, who, if you don't know, is multi-award-winning business owner, writer of 3 or 4 different books about marketing, which are were some of the key things that I read when starting my business. So yeah, head over and follow them.
Very good, very good. We've got some questions in which I'd love to go through, along with multiple comments saying that Ben's frozen, pulling a funny face. Justin Robinson says, can you expand on ways of protecting yourself when buying not subject to planning? Very useful to know, thanks. That's actually a really key thing that we have always been very, very focused on protecting downside. I'm going to use a case study for this and a scheme I think we did this particularly well with. We were buying a site in South Oxfordshire, and it was actually a disused police station that was not considered an office. It was actually a police station. We didn't know the use class. The seller wasn't taking any responsibility of what sort of use class it fell within. It could be sui generis, it could be B1A, it could be C3, because it was a combination of a house and an office on site. So the way that we de-risk deals like that, which we're buying unconditionally, is we analyze what price can we pay without any external factors such as planning, change of use, heritage, removing covenants, whatever it may be, to protect our position, what we can buy it for, refurbish it in its existing use, and then sell it and still not make a loss. So that is our backup offer, and that's what we go ahead with if there's certain variables that we need that we can't control. So I hope that helps, Justin. There's not sometimes just contractually ways that you can protect yourself, but there's also commercially ways when you review and analyze deals. We call it our worst case scenario. Once we've stacked that, we can then duplicate tabs onto our Excel to see what other ways we can add value and really explore high profit margin deals. I mentioned a few ways that we can de-risk it from a contract perspective. You could get an option in place, which is low cost ahead, and you don't have to buy it. But obviously that is subject to planning, and not all vendors want subject to planning. Another way that you can structure a deal to de-risk it for you is an overage payment or a delayed payment. So you pay them X today, and then you can follow up and pay them Y later once you've secured something. This is normally really successful if the vendor is, the beauty is the eye of the beholder, I say, is when the vendor has inflated expectations, thinks it's worth way more than it is. So you call their bluff and go, okay, well, if we get X, or if we achieve 3 houses, or if we get over £500 a square foot exit values, we will pay you Y. And that is another way that we protect it. So staggering payments, contractually covering yourself, but most importantly, having a backup so that you can get in, spend the money that you need to, and also get out. I feel like Ben's very much in and out, so I'm just going to keep firing on with these. Question from Thomas Oliver on YouTube. Very good. Ben, you can help with this one if you're about. Thomas Oliver asked, any tips for construction costs, securing subject to planning sites, which is currently a 2,800 square foot house with an additional 2,500 to be added through extension development, 9 flats. Unsure how to cost out. Thank you both for the replies on IG and email.
I think at this early stage, there's so many unknowns. Like, what area are you in? Are there site constraints that mean that it's a very secluded site with poor access? It's so difficult to just say, oh, use £200 a square foot, build costs, for example. To sort of give you an idea of what types of costs we're expecting in London and the home counties. For extension works, I probably would be somewhere around 180 to 220 pounds a square foot. Now, the big thing that people get wrong or sort of don't glean from that is when I say 180 pounds a square foot, for example, and I'm talking about purely build costs. Now, that doesn't include FF&E, so kitchens, flooring, lighting, all of the sort of client supply items, bathroom, sanitary ware. We would always factor in something between £12,000 and £15,000 per unit, on top of those £180 per square foot construction values, for example. Also doesn't include utilities, also doesn't include SIL, also wouldn't include consultant fees. So when people say, oh, what should I price my development cost at? It depends really what they're going for. Are they basing it on gross external area, or are they basing it on gross internal area? Have they included the communal space for the 9 flats? So it's just so difficult without knowing specifics. And I know what you're looking for. You're looking for me to give you a £200 a square foot figure for you to base your figures on. And you could use what I've just said, but there's too many unknowns to really give you a breakdown. The only way that you're really going to know is by getting a full detailed drawing set put together, sending it out to market, and getting feedback on that, or getting a quantity surveyor involved.
So obviously, when you're working things through acquisition and working out a price, you will have to make assumptions, but always err on the side of caution with your assumptions, because Then when you do have the detailed design ready to go to tender, hopefully you've got enough of a buffer in there to cover the scheme and cash flow it from end to end. But hopefully that's been of use. But it was quite comical. I was in a developers forum the other day, and someone talked about the a third rule, which is where land price is worth a third, the build costs are a third, and the profit is a third. Now that's completely outdated, and it's a bit like if it's a bit like walking into a car dealership where they've got Porsches and Ford Fiestas and expecting to pay the same money for either the Porsche or the Ford Fiesta. Every site is completely different. Every site has its own merits. If you're doing permitted development of an office building, look at services that you've got on site. Look at voids that you've got above ceilings, where if it's tight, you're going to have an expensive M&E cost to navigate that tight head heights. So these things you can factor in, and these are assumptions up to the point where you get it under offer, you go into legals, and then you can start spending true money on this to get a really accurate build cost. So just always err on the side of caution. Up to the next thing that happened this week, we've had a few meetings. One particular meeting with an existing investor to do more work with us, which is really positive. Fundamentally, we showed them the site that they're currently invested in. They're really pleased with progress, and we're currently in discussions for a new facility to do more stuff with them. And in addition to that, I met with one of the senior members at Bidwell's commercial agents. So they do land planning, strategic stuff, development stuff. And sort of similar to what I was saying earlier, there's potential XP surveys pipeline there as well to do some surveys for their clients, but had a positive meeting nonetheless, and hoping to be working with them. I also attended our development in Princess Risborough Sunset Court, but Ben might be able to give you a bit more of an update from a construction perspective of where we are at Sunset Court.
Yeah, so making really good progress. We're due to complete by the end of this month. We've got a few things to tie up in planning, but what I did want to share, if I can, is actually our builders give us basically a weekly video update of the progress on site. Hopefully you can see, Jack, can you see that?
Yeah, I can see it, yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Cool. So you can start to see we're walking through the upstairs of the two new builds. So this site consists of an office conversion under PD to 4 flats, and they were sort of pretty much finished, 6 to 8 weeks ago, really, subject to getting planning approval on some final bits on the external works that we've had to hold off until that planning comes through. The new builds, I think we started about 3 months ago, and this is the state they're in. So we're waiting on windows and doors, which are due to arrive in the next 2 weeks. Kitchens are in, the first fix, electrics and plumbing is all in. And to be fair, the second fix won't be too long behind. Really excited to see this one finished. They've started on the landscaping now, so we're putting the block paving back in place. Bikes, sheds, cycle stores, boundary treatments, walls, railings, planting, all that sort of stuff will start to come together in the next 3 weeks. So yeah, super excited about that one. If I can skip on a little bit further, you'll see some of the externals. So yeah, that's the office conversion, and then these are the two new builds that are basically built in the car park. So there's still 9 parking spaces for the 6 units, and a nice drone shot flying over as well, which the contractors give us every week.
Very good.
There you go. Any questions about that project? Put them in the comments below.
Yeah, good. Ben, I've just sent you an image on our latest HMO renovation in Henley. And I suppose there was a few things that I just wanted to share about HMOs. We've got aspirations to buy quite a few this year. And this is one of our latest projects in Henley. In short, the main things that I wanted to go through, purely because on a WhatsApp group recently, someone was asking about how do you analyze and look at HMOs. So as you can see there, this is actually a very old property that we ripped the kitchen wall out, and we're creating an open plan raised kitchen diner to sort of separate the space and make it feel a lot bigger. But in addition to that, there's going to be a breakfast bar that overlooks the living room and dining room, and then a bedroom behind it. So you can see the stud-work behind it. So we bought this, I believe, about 3 weeks ago. We're due to finish completely on the site within 6 to 7 weeks. So it's going to be a really rapid turnaround. But what I wanted to share with HMOs, because it came up in this group, is how do we analyze HMOs? So we are getting to the process now where we know what it costs us per bed. We know what it costs us to buy, construct, finance, and end values. So we know what sort of room rates we want to be buying at. But as a bit of a guide for people out there, we operate in Oxfordshire, and we tend to budget your standard acquisition costs of SDLT, finance costs, and also legal costs. We then normally budget about a month per room. Is a good way to go off a sort of metric for how long that's going to take. We budget around 20k plus VAT per bedroom for just internal reconfigurations, and that includes as many bathrooms as we can fit in there. And then we always base all of our end values on bricks and mortar. So we look at comparable properties that are of that size, of that nature, of that finish. A lot of our HMOs, if you took out the furniture of the ground floor bedrooms, would just feel like a house. So that's how we get to our gross development values. And the metric we look for is 25% back on the money left in. So on some houses, we leave 70 in, some houses we leave 30k in, and we're aiming to hit 25% back on that money. The reason why is because we lock in all of our HMO product long-term mortgages for 5 years. So we know that our money's out before the market and interest rates might change, which actually leads me quite nicely on to the change in interest rates this week. I don't know if you've seen it, Ben. I don't know if you've been doing any beach reading.
Only just yesterday, to be honest. Yeah.
So the interest rates have gone up to 4% now, which is quite a jump, but that jump now we're a bit already being at 3.5%. Is a percentage that is still very significant. But one thing that's really key is to look at where swap rates are going, and swap rates have actually gone down. So this is the cost of what banks buy their money at. So it's sort of further up the chain. The further up the chain you go, the more accurate data is going to be. So I don't think we're going to be seeing too much more increase, if any, which is quite positive for investors like us that hold stock, because that can kill holding assets. And we've been very, very, very spoiled with such cheap debt up until, well, over the last sort of 5-6 years, which was good. Any questions before we close off? I think we're pretty much through our points, aren't we, Ben?
Yeah, I just sent you a quick message about potentially the Ep4 social stuff. Again, just going through that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we can go through that.
Did you touch on it? Did you touch on it earlier? Because I might have missed it.
No, I didn't touch on that. No.
Cool. All right. That's
Any
fairly.
questions? I don't think we've got any other questions. Good. You can ask Ben what he's been eating while he's been on holiday.
Too much is the answer to that. It's definitely been a different holiday with a little 2-year-old running around. You can't really relax.
I don't. That's a good question. Do business owners ever relax, Ben?
I don't think so, really. I don't really mind it though. That's the thing. Like, I think, my wife would, but I think it's I actually find holidays are quite good for zoning out of kind of the craziness of business and life. I get quite a lot of good marketing ideas whilst lying on the beach and just like chilling. So I do think it's important to have downtime like this, albeit I'm still conscious of checking emails and if something pops up and I can get the team to do something whilst I'm over here, then I will. I don't switch off completely. No. You?
Yeah. So interestingly, it's we did it in the club that I'm in. We did a sort of task assessment, and I shared with you the results of some of the biggest organizations, CEOs across, and most of them do work weekends and most of them do work holidays, which is an unpopular opinion, but I'm of the same. I can't relax on holiday until I've cleared the decks and just made sure everything's operating. Otherwise, I constantly think, what about this? What if that? Who is anyone dependent on me? So I'm definitely a worker on holiday. It'd be good to see in the comments if people completely switch off or work from a business development, from a development business perspective, but also generally. I've got a message in from Matt. Hi, Matt Kirchner. Good to see you. He says, "How's the tan?"
Less white, I think, is probably the.
Yeah. Question is, have you seen vendors become more flexible on their sales price recently, on market or off market? I can answer that because we are the ones out there getting offers out every day. 100%, they are being more susceptible to flexibility and negotiations. We're very activity-led in our business. When you are activity-led, you become sharper on negotiating and processes, which is a big belief of ours. The more activity, the faster you learn, the more you can do. But I've definitely noticed that it's becoming easier to use the market to help with your negotiations. So I completely can see the market moving a little bit. There's just not enough viewings. There's not enough appetite. You've got to remember, as a development company, we are also selling at the moment in the market, and it's not as busy as it was last year. So we're not in the same position to be as aggressive with negotiating. The best negotiation skill there is being able to walk away. And when there's not enough demand and supply is high, the negotiation goes out of the market. So Matt, to answer your question, 100%, we are seeing more flexibility on pricing and also creative structures with property and landowners. Good. All tied up. Good to have Matt on board. Matt, for everyone out there, is one of our biggest first charge lenders, Quanta Finance. If you want to reach out to him, he's done a lot of deals with us over the last 2 years. I believe we're one of his biggest borrowers for first charge lending, maybe the biggest. So there's a big shout out there for you, Matt. Don't worry, we'll send you an invoice later today.
Good stuff.
Good, cool.
No other questions? No, all good.
I don't believe so. Well, Ben, we'll leave you to go and make some sandcastles.
Yeah, I'll catch up with you next week. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, Ben. Thanks to everyone.
Bye. Bye.